And we are live. Please do not adjust your sets. I know Manuel and Josh look a little different this week. That's because we're not Manuel and Josh this week. It's JD and Hao hosting UPZ this week. How would you like to introduce
Hello.
yourself?
Hi, I'm Hal. I don't have anything to plug or send you to, but I am on DTR and a long time ago on DTL.
Yes, and thank you for coming in and filling in while Manuel's busy with Level Up Expo this week.
Of course.
So yes, this is Ultra Podcast, our weekly podcast where we talk about just about anything. Yes, Hao is a VTuber. We've clearly established this now with him being in his PNG on here.
Of course. I mean, we're talking about a specific subject, which I felt like validated me choosing to be my D&D character. So,
Yes, actually, hi, Manuel. Yes, so like I said, our weekly podcast where we talk about just about anything. And this week, since we're moving into session 12, are we on? Almost a dozen now of
something like that.
The current campaign of DTR. I've always wanted to have this talk about TTRPGs and running them, so I invited Hao, DM of our past campaign, to come and talk about it with me.
I'm excited to talk about it. I really liked I liked DMing for DTR, and I liked playing for DTR. So it's neat to see both sides, you know.
So I guess let's, as Maria von Trapp said, let's start at the very beginning. How exactly did you get into RPGs?
I got into them earlier in college.
Mm-hmm.
So probably close to a decade ago, which is wild to say out loud.
Yeah.
But I just had some friends who were like, hey, are you interested? You're nerdy like us. And I said, absolutely. Tried D&D 3.5. I played a druid. We did a little level 1 sort of fight some zombies attack in a tavern thing. Never looked back. It's all been downhill since then. It's all I own too many books, too many dice now. What about you?
Yeah, very similar story. The earliest thing I remember of playing D&D was some kind of online tutorial that they had that I played a few times that just went over the basics. This might have been mid 2000, so this was probably 3.5. I don't know what it was. It was just D&D to me at the time.
If not 3.0 or something like
that. Similar experience. Sometime in either undergrad or grad school, I went to my college's tabletop gaming club. It's called RWAG, the Rochester Warhammer and Gaming Society. And I guess they were holding a Pathfinder tutorial, Pathfinder Society game. And I was like, sure, I'll jump in on this. I got nothing to do tonight. So I was playing Human Samurai. We were society members traveling along, transporting some jewels, and we were staying at some inn. And it was just oh yeah, now evil things are attacking. It's okay, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of books. Humble Bundle was very helpful for that when they just have their mega Pathfinder bundles. It's oh yeah, here's 20 books for $20. It's cool.
Yeah.
Then my biggest trouble was honestly finding a group at the start of it. I had trouble doing that until I basically just found another guy in my school's anime club who wanted to play. We found 2 other people in anime club who want to play, and this was 2016? Yeah, end of 2016, and we are still playing together today. They're the group that actually ran the first version of our current campaign for.
Now that is impressive. I have had a long time group, but I didn't get them until a lot later. Most of college, it was jumping from one group to another. Someone was really inspired. They wanted to run a session. They volunteered to do so. They run that one session. I never hear from the rest of the group the day from that day on. They all join another club or go do another thing or commit to this or that so I didn't find my forever group until much later.
Yeah, I feel that's a lot of it online when I'm looking for new games on Roll20, because before I got into DTR, I had another second group that kind of broke up at the start of 2020 because of the pandemic, and it was just affecting so many people's lives. The campaign went on pause, and then I think after a year, our DM just said, yeah, sorry guys, campaign's done here, and we were just about to go into something big. So I was I really want to see what's on the other side of that door. And I really liked running that character. I might try and shoehorn him in as an NPC somewhere in DTR if I get the chance.
I've done that 100 times. I guarantee any named character that has appeared more than once is an old PC of mine that I'm like, well, I refuse to let him die. He's going to be here instead.
Yeah. Actually, and getting into DMing is another part of my favorite group. We ran, we did Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Okay.
Was it, or whichever one the second one is? I can't remember if I got the names mixed up. But we did the full Tyranny of Dragons, though we switched parties halfway through, which you're not really encouraged in doing. So it was a bit weird. Yeah. Then we did Storm King's Thunder. Still set in the same Sword Coast, so we ran into occasional characters that we'd met before, and then our DM decided to hold do his own custom campaign, which was just basically a cap off of all the stuff we had done before, brought back a whole bunch of our characters, even as we were playing new ones and kind of wrapping up a bunch of things. We learned about NPCs we had met back in campaign 1, learned their secrets, and brought all that. Cool. And that's when I said, you know what? Okay, I'll take up the reins DMing now because you've done this for 3 years now without much of a break. So I basically started off just DMing one session because I had an idea. I had just seen a re-release of Spirited Away with my mother. Mm-hmm. I thought, in some ways you can make a D&D adventure out of this. Like NPC Absolutely. That the party likes gets captured by a hag on the Feywild, and now you have to do something for her to get them back. And it was they came at a perfect time. We had just arrived in the Feywild. DM had to go on a break for a week and do something. It's like, I can take over and do this. So basically his, the DMPC that was running with us at the time, he got his nose into something that was already missing. It's like, well, I know exactly where he is and what's happened to him. He and his pet wolf accidentally angered some hag who runs a bath shop on the Feywild, and now they have to go find her, deal with her, all that kind of stuff. And I do like that because it's another thing I've talked about before. It's like, if there's something big that the player should know, I like bringing them in on it, even if it's supposed to be a secret at the end. You've seen Spirited Away, right?
Of course.
Yeah, so at the end that when what's the witch's name? But she's asking Chi to identify her parents.
Yeah.
It's like, she's like, wait, none of these are my parents. I was like, okay, the hag is going to do the same thing for you. You instinctively know that none of them are your wolf companion who's been transformed. So you're going to tell her that. And I just gave him kind of free reign, and he got into it. Like, his half-orc ranger NPC was not the most socially adjusted. Mm-hmm. And so he's just, like, very much intimidating her and very much almost, like, I think, physically forceful. He was probably 2 seconds away from shoving her face into one of the pigs or its excrement.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A powerful tactic in D&D for sure.
Yeah. I say.
Do you typically, when you're DMing or playing, do you like doing homebrew ones more, or do you like doing like modules and stuff like prefabs?
Ooh, that is I do like having the straightforwardness of a module or a prefab.
Yeah.
And there's some really well written ones, both first and third party. One of the games that broke up sadly when I lost my job last year was we were doing a somewhat homebrewed version of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which is one I'd always wanted to play from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And we sadly only made it to level 3. We had just we were doing, I think, the fall one, which is the more Mission Impossible kind of thing, like spycraft and that kind of stuff. So we had made it to Zardoz's submarine, or onto a ship beneath which there is an apparatus of Quailish, which is basically just a submarine in D&D.
Yeah, that weird, I don't want to call it a crab, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I will have a picture of it right here for the VOD so that they can see that. But yeah, and then it was just like, oh, sorry, you're fired. It's like, wow, okay, got to use the hour I still have Slack access to let them know. So that's one I really want to go back to someday and actually finish. We also did, with my other group that broke up before the pandemic, our first campaign was Curse of Strahd, which is always a good one. one I want to
That's
run.
a pretty good starting one.
One I would run for DTR if we do like a Halloween special, either as like the one-shot version Strahd Dies Tonight, or as a much longer campaign. But I would totally want to do a comedic version of that. Like my dream is doing that version, that comedic version, where Strahd is basically just played by Tommy Wiseau.
I see. Yeah, I got you.
I mean, think about it. Funny
Or
accent,
like What We Do in the Shadows kind of vampire, you know?
Yeah. No, obviously as just a joke, he's from Poland, I think, has finally been revealed, but he was like funny accent. No one knows where he got his money. Pale skin, never seems to be out in daylight for a long time. Vampire, clearly.
I'm really jealous of like people who get to experience those campaigns for the first time. It's got to be magical, you know.
And I think just Strahd's like continued obsession with Irina, also just kind of fed that. You know, this is definitely just like Tom or Johnny and Lisa in the room. I can run with this. Doesn't help that Irina's brother is Ismark. Oh, hi, Ismark.
Ismark. Holy moly, it writes itself.
Yes, it does. So look for that possibly on DTR in the future.
I'm very jealous I didn't come up with this, but I saw someone mention they were having trouble picking someone to DM. Like, no one really wanted to, but everyone was willing to, and everyone's good at it. And so they decided to do Curse of Strahd. But the way they ran it is that all of them made a player character, and then they would take turns DMing. And each time they would DM, they would RP as one of Strahd's wives rather than Strahd. And so they would like do that little mini adventure, do a subsection, defeat that wife, and then go to the next one, and they'd rotate out. It was really cool. I'm really jealous I didn't come up with it.
Yeah, that is a very interesting style of DMing. Like, I've seen it suggested as a variant in, I think it's the 5th edition DMG. Like they talk about, you're just rotating DMs. There's some way that you can swap out at a time. Actually, but that is a very cool version of it that I haven't really seen before. Yeah, and like I was talking about like how I got into DMing with that like first one shot, and then it was like, okay, campaign's over. You deserve a break. Let me run something for a year or so, and I just like had a full campaign document. I showed you guys a smaller version of it, where I had like 13 or 14 ideas listed out. A lot of them weren't that well fleshed out. It was just like, okay, I have named a couple of these after Wheel of Time books, so I'm just gonna go for the full list. And so let's see what I could get inspired by some of the names. And that was, I think the current DTR campaign on there was listed as Towers of Midnight. And that's why I don't really have a name for it, because I don't want to use something that's already copyrighted.
Yeah, of course.
But there was like the Path of Daggers, which was more my kind of Game of Thrones, feudal, like noble house kind of trying to survive a game. There were ones that were in different systems. But I think all of them in a very similar manner to when we were deciding the current DTR campaign. There were a couple people who really liked the Golden Sun idea that was Towers of Midnight and just decided to run with it. It's like, cool, I have a really cool idea. I went into kind of my world building mode, just started writing down ideas, coming up with names for places. Like I had to place my 4 towers because it's a Golden Sun campaign. I have to have those.
Yep. The four magical places and or things that correlate to one of the 4 elements. Never seen that before. That's for true.
Yeah. I say I had to like come up with, okay, what are my villains for this campaign? What are they doing? Like I had another idea that was set up from it because the Towers of Midnight were supposed to be a different thing. They are like the jet black obelisks. I think you've already run across one in the second session.
Yeah.
And they're called Towers of Midnight because they're just midnight black. And they're written in a language that's completely indecipherable because it's a mishmash of different things with no like apparent meaning because it's just gibberish in 10 different languages. And you have to read all of them and know how to translate them. Which was kind of for why someone would do that. Was a very interesting idea and kind of helped me develop that. And it was obviously, if you've read One Piece, it's based on the poneglyphs, which are very similar, indestructible, written in a language that maybe one person at the current time can currently understand. And so
Yeah, I think there's only like one person who's like turbo confirmed outside of like speculation, you know.
Yeah. So I just kind of ran from there. You'll see the influences of various media. You already pointed out some of them. Very thankful. I'm very thankful for that, making me look completely like a ripoff.
If your DM doesn't rip off all of their favorite media, what are they even doing?
Yeah, like when I just remember introducing Talia, and you said, "Wait, that." Like for the people not benefiting from it, that's a League of Legends character. Like, yeah, thank you for. Or when you were in Ikana, and you were talking about how St. Jimmy's is taken from the Green Day track. Like, where do I find it other than track 6 on a Green Day album?
Listen, if you even remotely get close to something I know, I have to scream about it. That's the rule.
That's the rule. Yeah, don't worry. I had the same thing the first time running that campaign, because when they were going into Shunil for the first time, I had the guard stop them because they were looking for people who were smuggling in gold. Like, it had to be pressed and certified by a certain authority. And like, oh, like in Spice and Wolf? It's like, yes, like in Spice and Wolf.
See, I don't mind when my DM or when I have to pull from another source, because it does make it a little bit easier and like puts people at ease when you're like, yep, it's exactly like what you think it is.
Yeah.
Yes, you should think exactly like that. That as long as it means I don't have to explain this MacGuffin, that is what I want you to think.
Yeah. And
is this just like Doctor Who? Sure, why not? Why would yeah? If do you understand what happened in Doctor Who? Then it's that. Whatever that was, it's that.
Yeah, and I'm lucky that I think there are at least 2 things that you either haven't realized are references or haven't pointed out are references.
Or might have been too inebriated to like, kind of combine those things happening.
Yeah. So I've talked about like my pathway getting to it. Was yours getting into DM very similar?
For DMing, it was just literally like I had people who would play, no one would DM, so I'm like, I'll do it. I started and still mostly do homebrew. I only very occasionally do modules. And I didn't really get into modules until 5e. I mostly use them to get new people in, or like if we cycle someone out, someone gets a job overseas and we get a new person in, I always feel like it's a really good softball for them to kind of get into. But even when I do modules, I always go off script. I'm going to give slight spoilers for Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I really, really like that book. I think it's really well put together. But I went online and I looked up like 2 or 3 other DMs who were just giving advice on like how to run it, what to do. Because like running a carnival, surprisingly tedious. There are like 120 named characters in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and each one of them might come up more than once. They probably won't, but if they do, you want to be ready. You don't have to be like flipping through the book. So I, of course, wanted advice. And so many of them were like, hey, towards the end, they just sort of introduce like the League of Villainy or something, and it's never brought up before then. So like that was kind of lame. So I just took them out and just made one bad guy that they fought, and that made it a lot cleaner. So I always go off script, but I like modules. But I certainly lean towards homebrew. I started with homebrew. I end with homebrew. It's always more fun.
Yeah, actually, and it also, I think, allows a bit more catering to what your party likes and what they've done before that. Like sometimes there's things you can't really anticipate when trying to write a book for everyone.
Obviously, this is a very open-ended question. I don't want you to have to feel obligated to answer it in its entirety or to completion, but can you think of the style of game your players most enjoyed over like the past decade or so? Just like this, what like emotions was it evoking? What sort of, was it really, really railroady? Did they just like being put on a track and just, slaying things on the way? Or did you just kind of go, it's open world, figure it out, idiot? Like, there's a bounty board, because of course there is. If you've played Skyrim or The Witcher 3, you know how the game works. Figure it out.
Oh, I compare more to Monster Hunter when I do that.
Yeah.
Actually,
what's been the style that's been most successful for you?
Probably more using the kind of JRPG style quest I do for DTR. Like, I do give you some amount of freedom. Like, you guys have gone in completely different directions. Some of it's just up to random chance. like the end of last session, when you activated your magical necklace.
Yeah.
I had you roll a die, and that die determined what happened. I'm not going to tell you yet because that'll be revealed on this Friday's episode.
Yeah, we got a couple days.
Yeah. But it is something similar happened in the previous version of the campaign, and it was completely different. So I'm going to see how this goes. And then in my other campaign, I'm running for that same group now. I've just done it similar to Monster Hunter. They've set up town in a base that's like on a place that's being reclaimed from like the forces of darkness that just corrupted the land like 1,000 years ago. And every so often it's just like, okay, here's 3 missions, take your pick. We'll come back next session and start with that. So I had one like, okay, I just saw this horror movie and kind of liked it. Let's run a campaign or like an adventure inspired by that. Or here's like something that might further the plot and show more of what the like main villains are doing. That's there too. Oh, and something like, hey, I just want to run this monster and show off this cool location I came up with that you guys haven't visited yet. You can go here if you want, and then just going with whatever they pick.
Mm-hmm.
And then occasionally, there's just like, because I compare it to Monster Hunter, there's like the urgent mission that they had to take care of now. And then it's just something.
So you think like open world kind of is a little more friendly for the players? They can kind of pick and choose, kind of a la carte their way through.
Yeah, I think I like giving them some amount of choice. It was just more my experimentation. It's just like saying, what can I do for them, and what kind of game do they want to do? Because it was very specifically, hey, you're working for this organization. They'll give you occasional missions. Otherwise, you guys are up to doing whatever you do. And then I just kind of developed it from there. Like, I had a very like big idea of what the original version of Towers of Midnight plot was going to be, like the at least general overview of it. For the new campaign, which is basically my second big campaign for them, it's just like setup, player shenanigans, some idea of what it's actually going to turn out like. And it can go very far off the rails then. Like, I ran a murder mystery adventure, essentially just copying the house map from Clue as the manor they were in.
I like it.
I did my best to make it seem like the one character I introduced connected to the party, well, I think short of twirling a mustache he didn't have because he was a Warforged, that he was very evil and definitely the killer. And they still took basically a session and a half just interrogating everyone, like trying to figure out what was going on.
As a DM, I've learned I can make it as obvious as possible. I can literally put the answer in front of you, and they will still not get it. That actually happened with one of my last campaigns. They were in a secret underground tunnel dug by an old legendary warrior, and whenever they were trying to like light their way, because for the first time in my entire life, none of them had dark vision, which has never happened to me in a 5e campaign in my entire life. They picked up an old wine bottle and put like a candle in it and like lit that, and I was like, "Yep, that works. That's fine. It will last until you don't want it to be lit anymore. It's fine. We don't have to role play you taking the candle out and relighting a new one." And they found a puzzle down in the tunnel where they were like, "What's this ancient warrior's favorite wine?" And they like could not figure it out. And I'm like,
"It's the bottle they have, right?
You're holding the bottle." And then right after that, one of the like a further advancement of the riddle was like, "What are the ingredients in that wine?" And again, they start struggling. I'm like, "You're holding the bottle. Look at it. Use your eyeballs." They're like trying to think like, okay, he must have referenced it at some point, or like, we're now traveling with someone who's his daughter, who's half angel, because he like he made love to an angel, and now we have his daughter with us, and she's rad. Maybe she knows. Like, you're holding the bottle. Look at it with your eyes.
Yeah,
I love my players, but sometimes it feels like they are trying to mess with me.
Sometimes, it definitely feels like that with my player sometimes, and I just kind of have learned to roll with it. Like in that same adventure with the murder mystery one, they accidentally let him get away because they gave him back the hither thither staff he had used to commit the murder.
Yeah.
Basically, because he had to act too quick, he had accidentally split the guy in half through a teleportation portal.
I see.
So his body was in 2 halves in different parts of the manor. And they gave it back to him once they found it, because no one bothered to check it, even though I think I hinted to them that it was magical. And so he just like stands near your window, teleports out, and is gone. So they had to go to another magical resource, figure out where exactly he had gone, and then track him down to another place. I say the other campaign also just gives me a lot more, I think, opportunity to be funny with it. Like some of them just went very kooky with their character concepts. Mm-hmm. Like they're all some kind of mechanized life form. So that means throwing any kind of disease or like physical imperfection at them is just going to bounce off them. So it's like, oh yeah, here's this disease that only affects flesh. Oh, never mind. So one of our characters who was very focused on in this adventure was Jeeves. He's a Warforged butler barbarian.
Okay.
Yeah. He's named after Ask Jeeves, the search engine.
Of course.
For the old people who remember Ask Jeeves and search engines that weren't Google or Bing. And so he always like joked about how he had cousins named like Google, Bing, and all that. It's like, hey, can I take that idea and kind of spin it into a character? This was right after I think Microsoft had announced that Bing was getting AI features. So the joke was that thanks to finding something called it was like calibrated humanoid automata transmission or thought generation, permutation and transmission. It was ChatGPT just made into an anagram, or not to an anagram, an acronym. Mm-hmm. He now thought he was so much smarter than everyone else and was just trying to show it off. It's like, oh yeah, and what would be a good way to show it off? Commit the perfect crime. And so I just kind of spun it from there, what was going on. Like, I was connected to this evil plan. Like, in another thing I ripped off, there was, I had a sword from some of my favorite fantasy books. It's called Nightblood. Mm-hmm. It basically just sucks people's souls out because it was told to destroy evil, and it's a piece of metal. What in the world is evil to it? And so I just like that. Actually, it could talk, and then it accidentally sucked out Jeeves' soul once. Lucky with them, they had a NPC with them who happened to have a ring of 3 wishes with 1 wish left.
That's convenient.
Yeah, and that's not just me pulling something out of nowhere. They had gone to save that NPC as their first mission. He had died, and they would take in his stuff. That ring was there from from session 1. They just never bothered to take it. They could have very much just taken it from him and had it themselves. Like, in a very similar way to what you said. You can give them everything, and they won't look at us like... I made Revelations very late that it was a sequel to another one of our campaigns. And, like, this character was a character from that campaign. And it had been in his journal had they just looked at it, but they never touched his stuff. It's like, I kept telling you, we have this important stuff. You never looked at it. So it's very funny, like, doing all that.
Players simultaneously are little loot goblins and also just horribly unaware of the world around them.
Yeah, I'd say, and I'm sorry, expanding on that, it was that the second sword was one that kind of, instead of like taking things, expanded its own intelligence, like spreading out like a virus through people it had damaged. If you've seen Durarara, it's kind of like Psycha, that evil sword. And so that was just kind of the idea. It's like, oh yeah, I can show it as like the flip side of that one. Like, my DMing style is very much making up half the stuff and making it look like it's been connected all along.
I definitely like improving a lot. Like, I like writing a beginning, middle, and end, some of the, in between points. But for the most part, if my players just wander and I'm like, you know what I saw in an anime this week? You find a house with like a big purple light coming out of it. When you go in, there's a big summoning circle. Do you want to finish the summoning? Like, maybe it's good. Maybe the demon comes out and gives you like $1 million. Who knows? Who's to say? Not me for sure. You should find out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you? I guess more. You want to go more on your thoughts in your style of DMing?
Nothing in particular. I was going to ask you. Do you have like any particularly memorable moments, either playing or DMing, that like stick out to you? Like I just showed you one of mine, but.
Yes.
I don't know if you have anything in the back pocket.
Oh, yes, I have a bunch of them. I was going to get into it a bit, but I just wanted to make sure if you didn't have anything.
No, fire away. We'll do some story sharing for a little bit.
Yeah. So my first one is from, I think, my second campaign. I was playing an open hand
Second
monk.
campaign ever?
Yes.
Okay.
I was playing an open hand monk that was inspired by Spider-Man. If you can guess by the jacket, I'm kind of a fan. And so we were fighting a dragon, and this one was like up in the air. So we decided to have our cleric, who had been transformed or had been polymorphed into a giant ape, throw him up onto the back of the dragon. So he like got on the back of the dragon. He was holding on for dear life while like simultaneously like punching and kicking it. I managed to get a stunning strike blow on him or on the dragon, and so it started falling out of the air. So I was like, okay, can I do this like Super Sentai style where I like jump off the back, make a dramatic pose, and then like he explodes? DM was like, yeah. So that's one of my favorite moments. Just like, yeah, I jumped onto a dragon's back, was there for a couple of rounds, knocked it out of the sky, and then just did my Sentai finish.
That's a pretty big moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my favorite, like, both DMing moments and also just like a neat thing that happened was I had some players who were starting a cult. They just decided on a whim to start a cult, as you do.
As you do.
And so I was like, you're in like a big town. Like I told you, this is a much larger town. So I'm going to figure out what to do now, because up until then they had made some wishes and like they went bad. Like one of them was like, I want to be able to find magic items, like, you know, without even trying. And I'm like, cool. You hear a ringing noise every time you're near a magic item, including the ones you're holding. So it's just perpetual ringing. So he had disadvantage on like a bunch of checks and stuff because it's constant like droning noise. He has tinnitus. I gave him tinnitus.
Yeah, basically. I was about to say that. You just gave him tinnitus.
Another one was like, I want to be as strong as my mammoth clan used to be. And I'm like, cool, you're a were-mammoth now. Once a month, you turn into a mammoth and you can't control it. Good job. So, you know, they were pretty strong. Like, they were pretty powerful and they had some useful abilities, although they had huge drawbacks. And I didn't know what to do about them starting a cult. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do what anyone else would do. I'm going to go ask the mayor. And I left the room and I went and called my other friend who's a DM. And I gave him the lowdown. I'm like, okay, you're the mayor of a town. He's like, I'm in. Okay. I'm like, you know, it's about this size. Someone's starting a cult, and it is working. People are doing it. They are joining the cult as we speak. What do I do? He's like, I'm going to send in my strongest guard, and I'm going to try to break it up. And if they won't leave, I blow up that part of town. And I'm like, you blow up that part of town? He's like, yeah, I'm a tyrant. I have like all this power and wealth, and people listen to me. I would just, you know, if my hand gets infected, I'm cutting the hand off. I don't have time to figure out what a doctor can do. Like, I got to get that hand off before it infects my body. I'm like, all right. And so they had to deal with a giant explosion.
So I should imagine the guard just shows up, bombs in hand, like tossing it into their building.
No, that's what happened. They were outside on like a literal soapbox and they were preaching. And I said, this like giant juggernaut man comes up with a giant spiked ball. And, you know, two little guys try to approach you about it. They were like, you know, get out of here, nerd. And he's like, okay. And so they put the giant ball down and left, and then it blew up the district.
Well, that'll either make them into martyrs or completely wipe them out. I don't know which one.
A little of both.
Both.
We had a half TPK, you know, like not a lot you could do about your body is everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you failed that dex check, unfortunately, and I'm rolling a lot of D10s on this one. A lot of D10s for this.
Yeah, that mayor won to be sure. I say my next one is also just a very like memorable moment from the finale of a campaign. This was campaign 4, so this was like the wrap up to the other DM's like campaigns. We were fighting the big bad, who was like a wizard who was trying to rewrite magic in time.
Okay.
And so I was once again playing a monk. This was a different 4 elements monk based on Shaoran from Cardcaptor Sakura.
Mm.
And so I knew we were going to be fighting like a wizard as our final thing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take the Mage Slayer feat when I get the chance, because that might be a good thing to have. So I'm basically engaging this wizard hand to hand, like trying to tank it at the moment, or tank his stuff. And so he's very low, and I'm just like, I almost got a punch it on, but he's like, I cast shield. And I was like, wait, I get a extra attack thanks to Mage Slayer, which lets me use my reaction to make another attack when someone casts a spell within like 5 feet of me. So it's like, okay, I use that. I basically just go under a shield, kick him, manage to score that hit, and I think I managed to get the stunning blow on him too.
Very nice.
Which basically set him up for the end of that fight.
Oh, yeah. A successful stunning strike at that level, it's over.
Oh, yeah, I'd say because we had another wizard ready to fight him, and who was... Oh, we had a fight or two at that point. One of our players swapped PCs in the middle of the campaign, so I had to remember which one is which. Do you have any other like memorable moments?
There was one from a long time ago with that same group I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely like did not understand the freedom they had when we first started.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember running a 3.5 campaign and they were like, okay, we want to. I have no idea how they got to this point. We want to go to the forest. I say, you go to the forest.
Okay.
They say, we want to start cutting down trees. I'm like, okay, that's going to take a little while, but you can do so. And that was the first time I really learned to go, to what end? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Just tell me and we can, like, cut to that. We don't have to, like, role play you cutting down an individual tree. And they were like, we want to cut down a bunch of lumber and then go store it somewhere and then burn down the rest of the forest so that we have the only lumber and they have to buy it from us. And I was like, I clearly don't think you understand how abundant trees are, but I like where you're going. And so immediately, when they tried to start a forest fire, several druids showed up and were like, could you not? And they were like, we're going to do it. And they're like, please don't. We're going to do it. And so the druids were like, we're going to turn into bears about this. Like, and that was one of the first times where I had to like hip check them and be like, you know, you can't just burn down a forest without any repercussions, right? Like something might happen about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to kill your fun or take away agency, but like, there's a difference between like, I try to pickpocket that wealthy fellow and I burn down the forest, the entire thing, because I like capitalism. Like,
yeah, I was about to say that's some. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had that on this campaign for DTR. How many times did it take telling Amra and Jeddah, no, you can't just kill the kids' parents?
Oh, I'm convinced they're still going to try to go back.
I'm not entirely sure now. I think Jeddah's at least off it at the moment. Like, I think somewhere around episode 8, he realized, wait, I'm supposed to be a good guy? Amra's still on the fence on that one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Actually, and going back to like the previous version of this campaign that I've run, that was another great moment. Towards the end of that campaign, one of our characters had died around, I think this might have been before Tower 2. Oh, no, Manuel. Sorry. And had been reincarnated using the reincarnate spell, which put him in a different body.
Mm-hmm.
There were plot reasons behind that. I'm not going to go into it because they might spoil a bit.
Okay.
So he had originally been a Goliath from the Skybreaker tribe. You met Tunlifter. That's based on that PC that player character from the campaign. Yeah. He had been reincarnated in a human body, and he was just kind of readapting to society. Didn't have all his memories back. Was trying to remember who he was and all this stuff. They're on a boat one time and like going to the Roti Islands at the time. And one of the other PCs like said, "You threw off my groove." And the other players just start going into like a whole spiel about how it's not just like a phrase, which means, you're throwing me off what I'm doing at the moment. It's this whole mystical concept. There's like it. And so that snowballed into somehow becoming an entire religion with a subset of the Goliath tribes worshiping this mysterious groove. I think I still have it in the campaign notes that I gave you guys as a joke. Like, I think even in the text it says, some scholars suggest this is just a joke that has gone way too out of hand because that's in how it was created. I say
you really enjoy incorporating that stuff from like other campaigns.
Yeah, I say, and then they got to like the big meeting of all the Goliath tribes, which was attacked by that same group of enemies that had killed him before, including the very same enemy. And so he managed to score a nat 20 crit to kill this enemy. And he had the same kind of weapon that I think Amra has right now. Oh, no, sorry. Jeddah has the one with, I think, the tiger's claws. But his was a,
like lion roar thing?
Yeah. That same thing. It's another thing I tried to steal from Golden Sun. It's the unleashes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he like scores with his glaive that has that. Just like you see the lion's paw coming out of the sky and tearing through this guy, finishing him off in like the ultimate act of revenge. And it was just glorious. Do you have any more? Or
off the top of my head.
Okay, I did want to talk more about very specifically running for DTR.
Sure.
How is that compared to your other experiences?
It's 50-50. There are some days where like I have felt like I've never had a better session, whether I'm DMing or playing. And there are other days, I guarantee stream has seen exactly what days they are, where I'm literally pulling out my hair and going, guys, we don't have time for bits every time. We haven't moved. We can't make a fourth wall break every time someone says any word, please. Like, but we have had some real bangers. DMing for DTR is interesting. Trying to DM while also being inebriated, very, very strange. You know, I already don't take notes typically. I like to fly by the seat of my pants, and doing that while drunk, real hard to do. If someone says something confidently like, "Hey, remember when you gave me this magic item?" I just got to be like, "Yeah, sure, I guess I do." Why not? Why wouldn't I do that? Of course that happened.
And that's my secret. I don't like alcohol, so I don't drink. Every time you see me taking a drink out of this on stream, it's just water. That's my secret of how being able to manage all these people just running about. But
what about you? What's your experience been compared to your other groups?
I think my experience running my current campaign for my other group has been a blessing in trying to run this one, just because shenanigans will happen no matter what I try to do. Like everything that happened in Rasheen, just like, or in Ikana with him like trying to buying all those newspapers because he didn't want to get like change. Excuse me. And like just giving newspapers or throwing a fit at the restaurant, trying to get his money back after they'd already been charged up front. Definitely didn't expect that. Like some of them I'd clearly planned for, like the restaurant, that whole meal had already been planned because Jed had said, "Hey, I want to study to be a chef. So I'm going to just throw in like world-class restaurants here and there for them to try out." So I think that's been it. But obviously having to deal with people who are getting progressively drunker as the stream goes on, especially with Manuel pre-gaming like 5 shots sometimes, and Warren doing everything in his power to add on more rules for more shots, which is something we very much agreed that we need to cut down on, which is why we went from Nat 1s and Nat 20s to whichever one I feel like doing that day. But Warren was like, max damage, and then, max roll and 1 damage die. Max roll. Success. And whatever.
If it's an even number, we take 1 shot. If it's an odd number, we take 2.
Yeah. Actually, that's definitely been another thing I have to account for, or how we're, 50 or so sessions into this thing with a fairly stable cast, and some of them still can't navigate Roll20 worth anything.
Oh yeah, I'm convinced every time we shut off Roll20, they just like press their thumbs into their eyes and go la 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 la, and just like do that for a half hour until everything is forgotten.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I've been using Roll20 since I think 2017 at this point, because I went to college on the East Coast and now I'm on the West Coast. So since we wanted to keep the group still running, we just picked it up on Roll20. And that's where we've done all our campaigns since then. So I'm not an expert in it. I still have my issues and sometimes forget where something is, but I definitely feel like I know how to run with it and run a campaign on it fairly easily.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm double checking my Roll20 account now. I know it says somewhere on here like player since this, or like you've been Oh, here we go. Member since 2/6/2015.
Wow, you've been using it even longer
Almost
than
a decade.
I have.
Holy moly, the time flies. I have 1,280 hours played.
I think that might be even more than I have. I'll have to double check. I will put my hours here after DTR this week. But yeah, actually, and obviously the other eccentricities of the group, Manuel's love of panicking after taking 1 damage.
Or panicking when anything isn't positively worded.
Sorry, I still remember that time when he was in a room that was like filling with acid or poison gas or something like that.
Yeah.
And all he had to do was jump down and run. But he's like, no, just leave me to die. Dude, it'll take 6 seconds. Hold your breath and run.
I'd be less concerned if his usual panic response wasn't, I should kill all of my friends and then die. That's always his go-to.
I think this is just a reminder to never trust Manuel in a zombie apocalypse setting.
For real.
If it starts, just put Manuel out, and so you'll probably save a couple lives that way. Or at least prolong a couple. Actually, but yeah, it can definitely be a whole lot of fun when something gets going. I think Ulrich does a really good job at just kind of like instigating chaos that keeps things kind of moving.
Yeah, I'll do anything to just like move the dial forward a little bit,
Just nudging the rivalry between Jeddah and Amra at times when it just makes funny stuff, or your willingness to go along with anything your patron says for the most part. Even if you don't entirely understand it.
I want power, dude. They are the adult willing to buy me a child cigarettes, and so I will, in fact, do stupid things in order to get those cigarettes.
And then just figuring
Please don't buy children cigarettes.
Yes, please don't buy children cigarettes. Yeah, I say, and then just figuring out what random things can they send you and try and give you a message. Like when you met the other like warlock or representative at the library in Chunil. Like I was like, okay, how do I convey this? And I was like, wait, if I send flowers that are half split, like one color and one color, and then put a flower in the center that's called Elf's Head, then send you an elf with hair just like that, I think you'll put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly. Or
will I put it together? Yes. Will I try to ignore it? Yes.
Yes. Will she definitely notice you? Yes. Will she force you into a meeting? Yes.
Yeah, but that's Later Me's problem.
Yeah. And then obviously there's the one that came after that where, hey, I need you to dye this noble's robes in hideous colors just to embarrass them at a function. Like that one was good, and because it led into just one of my like favorite pun titles for an episode.
Which one was that one?
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe Malfunction.
Oh yeah.
Like I've been doing my best to figure out like a pun title for each of them. Like it started with A Star Is Born because you got the stars on the first one, and the way I spelled born means more like taken on as a burden kind of thing.
My favorite pun title I've ever done, I played, this might actually transition us into something else, so I apologize. When I was playing Monster of the Week, a different TTRPG, they had to go find a missing little girl named Wendy. And I titled the name of that, episode, because it's framed like a Supernatural or Scooby-Doo or Buffy. Yeah. It was titled Wendy Goes Out to Play. And they find out she's a Wendigo. And so I changed the title with like a big like rip through it, like a big claw mark, and it says Wendigos Out to Play. And I have never been that was my peak. I've been spiraling downhill since then.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm ever. I think that Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe Malfunction is probably my favorite of all the ones so far. Like I do like that the last one because you fought a mind witness. So I called it A Beautiful Mind Witness. Or I did Weekend at Core's for episode 2 because that was when Pleiades was out, so Core just kind of got knocked out, and you guys are basically dragging him along like he was Bernie. So I
always have a really bad. My players always have a really bad habit of when I'm blue lighting someone, when I'm just like, okay, they're not here this week, but I want things to keep moving and we can all play. There's still 5 of the 6 of you. We can do this. I'll be like, that guy gets bit by a snake and he's paralyzed until he is here next week. and they will they will make the campaign about rescuing their little friend. And I'm like, guys, the point of him being paralyzed is so we don't have to acknowledge him for the next 3 hours. Move on.
Oh, good. You'll go along with my stuff next session then. I won't have to worry about you. Yeah. You'll understand what happens to Amra as soon as the next session starts. Because as we've said, Manuel's going to be out. He's at Level Up Expo this week. I believe he has 2 panels. If you're there, go see them. If you're watching this in VOD, too bad you missed them. Maybe he'll have them up on his channel sometime in the future.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm. Well, if he ever decides to get to record them.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
If he remembers to record it, if he actually does it, if he then edits it and then posts it, if he does all, if the planets align,
yeah, but
it will happen.
It'll have to happen between like his 12 o'clock drinking and his 2 o'clock drinking.
Yeah, that's a tight window.
Yeah, though you did touch up on something I did want to talk about. Other TTRPGs, because DTR has so far been entirely focused on D&D. What do you have any other non-D&D, non-D20 RPGs you want to that you really like, that you've played?
I mean, I've played Pathfinder, but that's obviously D20. I recommend it for anyone who wants something way crunchier than 5e, but definitely not for people who are like trying to introduce their friends and family into like tabletop role-playing games. It's definitely more complicated, but it feels a lot more free. If someone's looking for something that isn't like D&D, high fantasy, et cetera, I definitely recommend Monster of the Week. Yeah. It has that feel of like Scooby-Doo meets Buffy meets Supernatural meets whatever you want it to be. And I really like that vibe. I like that it's very open-ended. Your players are encouraged to just say things and now they're true. If your players arbitrarily all go, yeah, after every mission, we always go to Denny's afterwards. That's just true now. That's fine. That's happening now. So I really like that. That's pretty fun. I've tried Vampire the Masquerade. That was pretty fun. Definitely another one for people who maybe don't want the rigid structure of Dungeons and Dragons, but want to, mess around and play emo kids and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Do you have anything off the top of your head?
Yeah. Monster of the Week is another one. I haven't played it as a player. I've run it for a group of family members because my sister and 2 of my cousins' kids wanted to get into TTRPGs. And so we tried a couple sessions of Dungeons and Dragons, but basically imagine the worst things that the DTR crew has done, and then just imagine they're completely sober doing that, and probably like another 50% worse occasionally. No inhibitions. They're just ready to light everything on fire if they can.
Yep.
Yeah, but my sister really likes Buffy, Supernatural, X-Files, that kind of stuff. So I saw, oh, hey, Monster of the Week. That is kind of built around this. So I ran a couple of that, just running whatever really came to mind. And one of the first thing I ran from them was based on it wasn't Vampire the Masquerade, but it was one thing within like the original World of Darkness setting. It was like one where you're paranormal investigators investigating a vampire thing. I can't remember what it's called, but if I find it, I will once again put it up here. And that was like my only experience with World of Darkness at that point. But it was a very fun one-shot where, oh yeah, hey, there's been a murder in a club. This woman's been drained of blood. We have no idea what's going on. So we track her back to, I can't remember if it's her apartment or the killer's apartment. But I had the idea to take her cell phone and just find the last person she had texted in there, figuring it was the person who had killed her. It's like, hey, just woke up. Something weird is going on. Come to my place so we can talk about it. Because I had basically been inspired by A Study in Pink, the first episode of Sherlock from the BBC, where he does something very similar, takes a victim's cell phone, texts the last person on there, and sees who comes up. And so, yeah, the killer just came to the, I think to the apartment, so it must have been the victims at that point. And we just confront them there using whatever improvised weapons we can. And in another moment that I probably should have brought up before, one of our investigators manages to bluff him using like bureaucracy, just like, oh yeah, we're with this agency from this thing, buying us time to like get into place when we spring our attack on him. That was a lot of fun. Actually, I haven't had too much experience with other TTRPGs, but they're definitely ones I want to try and maybe see if we can run on DTR.
Any of them at the top of the list? Like, what's your number one you want to try if you could?
Of ones that are currently out right now, I really want to try the Cypher system one day. It's from Monty Cook Games. It still uses a D20 as its base, but basically every task you do is ranked on a scale from 0, which is anyone can do it with no problem, to 10, which is this is basically near impossible. And you have to be extremely skilled and basically a demigod at this point to even try doing it, or like have so much stuff stacked up helping you. Basically, to beat any of those, you have to roll above 3 times that number. So you can see that a 10 would be a rank 30, which is impossible to roll over on D20. So you basically just have your eases, which take things down a level. So you stack up enough of those, you can do that. I do like character creation is more character description. So it's like, I am an adjective class name who actions. So like, I am a strong, like, I think glaive is what they use for fighters, who rides the lightning is like one of the things I want to play. Like just as a lightning spitting warrior, just cleaving through the field and bringing down thunder on my enemies.
That does sound pretty cool.
Other ones, I first learned about it when we interviewed Lemar, TheConGuy Harris at Anime Los Angeles this year. I will link to that video in the description on in our VOD. It's called Jukebox, the I think musical RPG. It's definitely not going to be a DTR stream, though. It would be funny. It would get copyright struck pretty quickly. But as its kind of name suggests, it's about singing or like going through an entire jukebox musical. You like write down the songs you think you want to sing. Everyone picks like an opening number. You kind of decide what the concept is going from there. Then you go through your numbers. You kind of like write up the scenes and the characters going through to that number. Then you sing that number. And at the end, you like draw from a deck of cards, like looking at the outcomes of scenes and seeing how your character's arc actually like progresses, and the entire like the overall group arc as well. It sounds like a lot of fun. Had I been going to Level Up Expo, I probably would have seen if I could have gotten Lemar and Manuel and maybe someone else just into the hotel room and played that for about 4 hours. Other ones, Legend of the Five Rings. Warren's brought it up, I think, on DTL before, and there was like talk of making a campaign for that. We just never got around to it. I really like kind of like the feudal Japanese setting and would be interested in running a character for that one.
Legend of the Five Rings, I only know from the card game.
Yeah, actually, it was. Is the card game still out? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think they tried to do Resurgence like pre-pandemic, and then I assume any hope it had was probably killed by the pandemic.
Yeah, actually, because I like the feudal-esque Japanese setting. I always hear like great stories about the card game and how it kind of incorporated the like greater living story that went on at tournaments.
Yeah. If like the top 2 people used this faction to beat that faction, then the other faction's people died, and now maybe one of them's a ghost. Now one of the cards you can play is like someone's tomb, so et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I know what I'd have to look it up. I remember hearing this story, but there was like one tournament where someone offered a prize if someone like in like quarterfinals or whatever revealed that they were secretly the Shadow Clan or something, and someone decided to go through with that.
Yeah.
And then I think was it the Day of Thunder or some other grand event where one person, like the 2 people in the finals, was like, okay, we know what's going to happen. We're just going to go for a bit. Then one of us will basically just fall on our sword and the other will take care of it, kind of thing. That was another like great moment that just kind of got incorporated into the overall story. And it's not really part of the TTRPG, but it's like something you can think about when making your campaigns. It's like how to make these things kind of mean something or like have overall significance in your campaign. Other ones, there are a couple that I'm looking forward to that aren't out yet. It's definitely 5e like, but Tales of the Valiant from Kobold Press. I use a lot of their third parties. Yeah. It basically started after the OGL debacle last year. It would probably been in the works for a while. I don't think you could spin up something that quickly. But it's kind of like their custom set of rules for 5e. Basically, I think they're trying to be the Pathfinder to, I guess, the Pathfinder like for 5e, in that they're kind of splitting off from doing content for 5e and into their own stuff, and hoping that they can be as successful as Paizo is at it. It's basically a lot of the same stuff. There's some rules clarifications. I think instead of having a spell level, it's now a spell ring. So it kind of separates it out from people who get confused about character level and spell level.
Yeah.
And it also incorporates that, oh yeah, the lower ring is incorporated into this, so you can upcast a spell that way, kind of thing.
Okay.
They're also separated ancestry and culture, that kind of stuff, so you can have two separate things. You can be like a gnome who was raised by cloud giants and kind of grew up in that culture and is acclimated in different ways from one who grew up in standard like gnomish culture, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Or Matt Colville's company MCDM is coming out with their like tactical cinematic fantasy role-playing game. I don't think it has a name yet, but I'm very interested. I like his ideas on design, even if sometimes I'm not entirely on board with the execution. So I backed that. I'm very much looking forward to how it comes out. Also, I'm a big fan. I mentioned one of the book series by Brandon Sanderson earlier. So he has one adaptation of his books, the Mistborn TTRPG, which would be another one I'd want to run. It's kind of like World of Darkness similar, but it only uses D6s instead of D10s. So that would be an interesting one, because I'd want to run it as like you're a crime crew. Here are different things you can do in this empire. And then sometime in the near future, his Stormlight Archive series is going to get a TTRPG from Brotherwise Games. So
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. They've shown off a bit of it, but they haven't like they've shown off the character sheet and how it's kind of separated. It's also built on like a 5e chassis, but it looks like they're changing up a decent amount of it too. Others like things that are currently out that I'd want to run eventually, if I can find a group to get to it. The Dragon Age RPG or the Fantasy Age, which is kind of the more generic version of it that came about from that, is another one. I kind of fell in love with the Dragon Age series when I played Origins like 5 years ago for the first time. Yeah, I know, it's very late on that train.
Only a little.
Yeah. But I really like the setting, and I knew that there was already an RPG out there for it. I think I had gotten it in a bundle of holding so many years ago. Because a bundle of holding is also another really great way to get just TTRPG PDFs really for really cheap. For those who haven't heard of it. Obviously not sponsored. It's just I really like paying $20 and getting 20 RPG books.
Unless they want to sponsor us.
Yeah, unless they want to sponsor us, then I will shill till the end of time if they keep paying. So that one looks cool. I still need to go through like the full rule book, but I like how it deals with like the taint of the Darkspawn, that kind of stuff. And so I've been trying to incorporate that, but in my current campaign. But once again, when you have 3 robots who are essentially immune to the stuff, it's like, well, got to throw out that concept. Just roll with what I can do to them. They're looking forward to when I introduce the robot vampire Nos4A2. I can't claim any kind of ownership over that. I stole that from Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. It probably existed before that, but that's where I first learned of it.
I came up with Dracula backwards being Alucard, so...
Yeah, no one had ever done it before that. Definitely not.
No one's ever done it before that.
Definitely not the movie Son of Dracula.
That's for true.
Or Castlevania. Can't believe they never got around to that one.
I also came up with Dr. Acula. I came up with that as well.
Yeah. Any other like TTRPGs you haven't tried but are looking forward to in the future?
In particular, I mean, D&D is kind of my home, so I don't like straying too far from it. But I'm always excited to find something new if people have something that's going to give me the same feeling, you know.
Oh, sorry. I remembered another one I wanted to talk about because I've been reading through the rule book. It's the Konosuba TTRPG. If you
Didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. So yes, the anime Konosuba got its own TTRPG system. It came out in English a couple of years ago, and I bought the book. I've only now been reading through it, and it seems fine. I want to play through it and just try it out, because Konosuba is known for kind of those chaotic adventures. Essentially, it's an actual party playing D&D and what it would look like. I think is a good way to describe it, with how much chaos they cause, how terrible people they are while still being the heroes. I think the good comparison for anime is Lodos War is how the dungeon master expects the campaign to go. Slayers or Konosuba is how it actually goes.
Yep. That's pretty accurate.
Actually, so that one might be a fun one to run on DTR in the future. Especially if we can bring in more people and just see what kind of chaos they can cause as their characters. But yeah, I think that's... Seventh Sea is another one. Sorry, I'm just gonna add one to the list. That it's basically just a pirate RPG set in essentially medieval Europe, but they've added on things for other locations as well. They've covered kind of like the Middle East, the New World. I believe they're still working on a supplement for Asia, China, Japan, that kind of stuff, which isn't a different but completely interoperable system that just kind of more reflects how myths from that area kind of work compared to European myth.
Cool.
Yeah. It's one I just really like the setting and just getting, oh yeah, hey, I can play out my Pirates of the Caribbean, my One Piece fantasies in here and just roll with that. I'm trying to think, do I have any? Yeah, I think that's all of them at the moment. So, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about, or do you want to start wrapping it up here?
No, I think that's everything. I think we covered quite a few interesting topics. So.
Okay, so yeah, let's start wrapping it up then. So yes, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being a player, and thank you for running for the TTR crew.
Of course.
Here's to hopefully many more sessions, because if we go at the pace that my last group went at, I think the current campaign is going to take us more than 2 years.
I wouldn't be surprised with the speed at which some of our characters engage with the content.
I mean, there are times when I'm cutting out stuff, times when I'm adding stuff, and then times when I'm just wondering, why are we doing this now? So I'm very much looking forward to it. Like I think I calculated the time it took for the previous version's campaign, going essentially weekly with obviously the occasional hiccup. It took us 1 year, 1 week, and 1 day.
Wow.
I think we changed days somewhere in there, so that would make up for like the wonkiness if it doesn't come out to an exact week. But yes, it was a very interesting thing, and since we meet bi-weekly, I'm expecting it to take about twice as long if I don't cut down some stuff.
We'll just have to start meeting every single week. That'll give Warren his fix, and I'm sure Manuel would not turn it down.
Yes, I'm sure Manuel will never turn down a chance to drink. So yeah, like I said, let's kind of wrap this up here. Once again, thank you for coming. As for what we're doing later this week, tomorrow, Manuel will actually be on with Warren playing Breath of Fire 3. That'll be 6 o'clock-ish. Sometimes they've been starting earlier. They don't really have a solid start time. It's just whenever Warren feels like it at the moment. And then we will be back for DTR this week without Manuel. So let's see if we can actually move on more quickly than without having him panic at everything.
Anything else we need to plug, go over? Any other upcoming events?
I already mentioned it. If you're at Level Up Expo this weekend, Manuel will be there running, I think, at least 2 panels. One, I believe, is on Journey to the West and its influence on anime, and probably another one about idols or Japanese music of like the 1970s or the 1980s. Maybe both. Anything you'd want to promote? 4 panels. Thank you. Manuel's running 4 panels this weekend. Anything else you'd like to promote? How I know as a collective figment of our imagination, you might not have much, but maybe you have some friends who do things that you...
Nah, I got nothing to promote this time.
Okay. So yes, watch our campaigns, watch our friends' campaigns. I talked about Lemar previously, like when we interviewed him and how it inspired me for Jukebox. He's running a campaign over on Feywild and Out that is a Spelljammer campaign. And I watched the first episode last night. It looked really cool. I'll post a link to that in the VOD as well. Our friend Fangy, another VTuber friend of ours, is also in a monthly campaign playing Monster of the Week, which is also where I get some of my like experience of that from. I'll post a link to that as well. But yes, thank you everyone for coming and watching. I hope you'll be back next week when we are doing, well, whatever Manuel probably wants this week. I got what I wanted this week. So yes, thank you all for coming. Good night, everybody.
Good night.